Hello and welcome back to the Q&A. So as always, you can leave questions or anything like that in the description, no, not the description, the comments of the video. Yeah, it'd be quite worrying if you could edit the description of my videos. That would not pan out well, I don't think. But anyway, let's move on to the actual Q&A itself. And the first question is from, no, not Daniels, Larry Daniels, who said, looking at the new instance loading tech they have for Ashran, do you think they could possibly eliminate loading screens between continents and Azeroth, and various things like that? Basically, Larry liked the idea of having a bit more gameplay within the ocean between the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, and he did say that, yeah, it's maybe sort of wishful thinking, but he just really asked, what do I think they could use some of this tech for? So first of all, it's time to just explain load screens and that kind of thing. Ashran would never really need to use a load screen, actually, and the reason for that is because it's just a constant instance, and the actual art assets from that instance are still the same no matter what instance you're in. So that means that the only thing that they have to sort of phase in and out is the different players and all of that. And I'd imagine that it's a bit sort of similar to the garrison instancing tech, or maybe the farm instancing tech, but really rolled out and expanded upon in a major way. So I don't think that tech is really related to load screens, but I think that load screens are actually an extremely important thing to talk about in gaming. I can't stand them in MMOs, if I'm brutally honest, and that is one of the things about at least the early experience of the Elder Scrolls Online that just put me off so much. It was go through a door, load screen, do this, load screen. Hell, even in the regular Elder Scrolls games, I cannot stand the amount of load screens I have to sit through in towns, even when I'm playing the game off a solid state drive. Look, I know that my computer could handle loading all that stuff at the same time. Let me do it, game. Now then, for World of Warcraft, I think that this is one of the games that is actually excellent at handling load screens. It really is very good when you think about it and compare it to some other games. Other than moving from expansion to expansion content, then yeah, there's no real load screens. And while you do have to load screen when you go into, say, a dungeon, that's a bit different. This Ashran instance tech, it's not like Ashran is loaded up as if it is, say, a battleground, but without a load screen. Ashran's just a part of the actual Draenor world that has a whole bunch of really cool instancing, like phasings, tech stuff going on with it. But the art assets are not things that are freshly loaded in, I suppose. And I guess the reason why there are load screens in, say, the Caverns of Time, or the Alcatraz, or any of the various different dungeons in the game is because, well, often those dungeons, they don't actually fit into their in-game structures. And I know that sounds weird, but sometimes you could have a door to a dungeon, maybe in Utgard Keep, and the layout of Utgard Pinnacle might not actually fit the in-game, like, outdoor art asset for it, so that's why it needs to be instanced in. And then just with how they deal with groups and various things like that. So for your dungeons and your raids, I think we're going to stay with loading screens, and that's totally okay. But a good question there is just about moving from expansion content to expansion content. So going from Dalaran to the Shrine of the Majigger things. That's got a load screen at the minute. Going from Eastern Plaguelands to not Silverpine Forest, the Eversong Woods, that's got a load screen. Perhaps that's something that they could eliminate. I don't think it's really a giant issue, though. It doesn't really gird me too much, though perhaps if they could make like some sort of crazy cool portal spell effect to mask a loading screen, that would be nice. Like you just like walked into a Stargate from SG-1 or something, that would be pretty cool. But in general, I think, loading screen's not a giant problem. But, you talked about islands in your question, and I think that Blizzard have this ability to really have a giant world with no load screens. We see that in the Eastern Kingdom and Kalimdor. So if there was a South Seas expansion, or just perhaps maybe Kul Tiras was there, various things like that, and maybe we could get ships or something, I actually believe that sort of feature set in combination with how good World of Warcraft is at just giant areas could be fantastic. And I think you just would be able to go from island to island to island without load screens or anything like that. And yeah, I'm really warming to the idea of being able to have boats in-game. Of course, in an expansion that makes sense for that. But I was just looking at Arcage, and that's an MMO that seems to have pulled off boats and pirates pretty well. So maybe a South Seas expansion could do that. Hell, we've got the Goblins, the Bloodsail, Buccaneers, and all those different things. I know this question went off topic a little bit, but I thought it actually brought up some interesting points. So, cool stuff. Okay, next we have a question from AJ Alkaline, who said, since the balance of power has really shifted in favour of the Alliance in Mists of Pandaria, do you think we'll see it start to shift back towards the Horde in Warlords of Draenor, and if so, how do I think that will happen? He said that he could see Sylvanas or Lorthmar possibly staging a surprise attack in the Eastern Kingdoms, or possibly Jaina might start to cause some big problems and sort of become a decisive Garrosh-style character for the Alliance. Then his second question is, when do I think we'll start hearing about Bolvar Fordragon as the Lich King, and how do I think he'll end up just working out as a character? Could he be like a previous Lich King, or maybe an even more awesome anti-hero type character? Okay, so on the first question about the balance of power, what's going to happen is the balance of power will shift back into the middle. The Horde will recover, and maybe the Alliance could have one or two little internal conflicts, but overall, they're just going to baseline both factions, I think. But I don't really believe the Horde will get stronger than the Alliance, or the Alliance stronger than the Horde. Because the whole story arc with the Alliance is the reason they're so strong in Pandaria is because they were behind their High King, they were together, etc. Well, the Horde are going to have the same with Vol'jin in the next expansion, so they will recover, they will get better. Perhaps they might even get some new Frostwolf recruits and various things like that. Though the reason why I don't think there's going to be a giant Alliance Horde war anytime soon is because Warlords is, oh crap, Azeroth's going to be destroyed, and just from one or two things that Blizzard have said, and characters like Rathian have said, I think the Burning Legion are coming, like, pretty soon. And if they are coming, then we could be in trouble, and if that were to happen, then I think Alliance and Horde would stop trying to murder each other for about 5 minutes so they can, stick a pike up, kill Jaden's arse. That could happen. Now, if the expansion that comes after this is Old God related, perhaps some key members of the Alliance and Horde could fall to the whispers of the Old Gods, and that could spark off a war. Maybe Sylvanas could be Old Godded up, but I think I'd just like that character to get strong on her own sort of volition, rather than being Old Godded. Maybe Jaina could actually sort of become susceptible to all that through all her anger and hatred and stuff. Though, I think I'd like to see her as a character just sort of be Old Godded up and then break free from it and do something kind of cool and badass, because I just think that would be a bit of a fun storyline. So, yeah, that's my opinions on question 1. As for question 2, and how we'll hear about Bolvar and the Lich King and all that stuff, I have absolutely no idea whatsoever. If they're going to make him a main expansion villain, it's going to be really weird, because how do they shift it from being Northrend? I mean, he is sitting there in Northrend, and if a new Lich King came, Icecrown Citadel would probably still be his citadel, unless there was like a Northrend, which was above Northrend, which he could retreat to with another Icecrown Citadel that was taller and more spiky. I just don't know how they'd make a new continent for it, or a new piece of land. I don't know. Maybe there could be some episodic patch content that could be to do with his story. I think that could be cool. But, yeah, I don't think they're going to make him turn out to be an ultra-evil bad guy. Maybe he'll be this kind of like morally grey force up north that slowly falls to corruption, maybe, but initially is good, and there could be a bit of an interesting storyline there following the character's descent into madness, which is something that I guess we did get to see with Arthas, but yeah, look, I'm not sure. I don't think many people are that sure. Hell, we don't even know where Arthas' body is, we don't even know where the Shards of Frostmourne is, and we're not sure what Sylvanas is planning on doing with her last few Valkyr. I know she's, like using them to raise dead, but is there something crazy she could do there? Could she do something with New Blight? Lots of things going on, but no answers, and not a great deal in terms of hints, at least from what I've heard. Okay, so next we have a question from the intellectual property bending Draenor Starcraft. No, it's Draenor Starcraft. Whoops. No, he's not bending intellectual property. Whatever. Anyway, he said, after being in the spotlight for so long, do I think that perhaps Thrall should take a turn away from the story, or even be taken out of it completely? And what would I think if they killed off Thrall in Warlords of Draenor? Okay, so there are some series and some genres and some tones in which killing off Thrall would make sense. If this was like, I don't know, Game of Thrones or some sort of weird Warcraft Battlestar Galactica, then perhaps killing off Thrall would make sense, because those shows have got far more kind of gritty, dark, and it's, well, not for Game of Thrones, but at least for Galactica, just downright depressing themes. That would work great in a thing like that, but Warcraft is different. Look at its art style, look at the writing, come on, they're using I don't even want to say comic book writing, because that would be kind of dissing in comic books. Sometimes they nearly have arcade levels of writing in the game. I just don't think that it would make much sense to kill off Thrall in the game. Look, maybe he can just retreat back for a little bit, and only appear in stories in which it's relevant. And I think that's kind of happened. He appeared in his relevant story in patch 5.4 and 5.3. He appeared in his relevant story for the Warlords of Draenor, where he finishes off the Garrosh arc. But after that, what will he do? He'll just be kind of shaman. He'll have one or two kids, I think, depending on some spoilers I may or may not have heard. Yeah, whatever. That's not really much of a spoiler anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could go on with Thrall. And I don't even know if that's true, by the way. I'm just Emerald Champion comments. I saw that he had 2 kids. Now I'm thinking, is that a spoiler? Because I only thought he had 1 previously. Maybe I was just mistaken. Whatever, so that's the situation with Thrall. Basically, use him when he makes sense, and just don't take him out of character and do a whole cataclysm on him. We don't want that to happen. But the good news is that Blizzard have definitely learned their lesson when it comes to the storytelling, just blunders of Cataclysm. If you ever want to just cringe, just watch the final cinematic of that expansion, and... Our mortal powers are fading! I look upon the world with mortal eyes! And then you get to see their eyes stop glowing. Oh, god damn it. Who thought that was a good idea? Okay, let's move on to another question from Mike Therodon Apocalypse, who said, do you think the Warcraft movie will be starting at the point where we end Warlords of Draenor, so that the Dark Portal opens at the end of Warlords of Draenor in Old Draenor towards Old Azeroth and closes our timeline, and that the alternate dimension of Warlords of Draenor will be the movie universe going into movie sequels, and with all the sort of freedom that will give them in terms of lore and that sort of thing? Okay, I understand what that would do in terms of freedom, but I think that would be a terrible idea for making a film. And the reason for that's because you don't want to bog down your first movie for a franchise like this with confusing time travel bullshit, honestly. I think that there doesn't need to be a reason that ties in with in-game lore to have them be separate universes. Like, for an example, with Marvel, you have the Marvel comic book universe, you have, like, the Ultimate Universe, then you just have the Marvel movie universe, which is its totally own thing. If there are going to be multiple Warcraft films, I just think we should have the Warcraft movie universe. That would be cool. Now, in terms of the actual setting of the expansion, it's back during the First War and that sort of thing, but not the Warlords of Draenor version, like the actual First War. I think that starting it off in Warlords would be just kind of nonsensical, because I don't want the World of Warcraft, or the Warcraft movie, to have any tie-in with the game. That would be terrible in my opinion. And what should happen is, they should just take the rich and interesting lore and characters from Warcraft, flesh them out a bit, and then get Duncan Jones to work his film magic, because the guy is an extremely talented director, writer guy, and I think he co-wrote, he's co-wrote both of his last movies, actually. I think he wrote Moon, I'm not particularly sure. Anyways, like, one of my favorite directors. Still, they should just give that guy as much freedom as possible, and not tie him to having to, like, always latch on to the games and make things tie in with expansions. Sure, the Warcraft movie could have a direct tie-in with the Warcraft game, and that could help the game out, but I think that releasing a phenomenal World of Warcraft or Warcraft movie is more possible if it's not tied into the game, and that would in fact be better for the game. So yeah, and just in case anyone's worried, by the way, Duncan Jones has played Warcraft since Warcraft 1, he's played Warcraft 2, he's played Warcraft 3, all the expansions, he plays World of Warcraft, or at least did back when he had a bit more time, because, you know, now highfalutin director, man. And yeah, just like even at the BlizzCon panel, their main special effects guy is a big Warcraft person as well. This movie's going to be full of all the Warcraft vibes and things that you want, but it's just not going to, I don't think it's going to have any of those ultra cheesy, like, tie-ins to the games, you know, where, I don't know, they fight an Ixia and someone's like, more deeps, more dots, whatever. No, silly things like that aren't going to happen. So I think the movie could be fantastic, and that is my mostly incoherent talk about the movie. Still though, Mac Therodon, I do understand what you're going for, and I think that if they were to do something like that, it would be best suited to maybe an animated series, or perhaps like a manga. That kind of thing would tie in a little bit better, but I think if you're putting $200 million onto a movie, then it's gotta be just its own thing, totally free of the game. Anyway, that is it for the Q&A. So in terms of things you can do, there's my Patreon page, which I'm now pimping out, doing stuff with. There's the like button, subscribe button, all those lovely things. And with all of that said, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.